Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up, and thank you for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. Today's movie review will be on horror American Gothic.
Wicked.
Fanny's gone crazy.
Wicked girl. You're all wicked. Come from your wicked world.
So this month's subscriber request comes from friends of the channel Frightfully Forgotten. Justin and Adam initially had requested The Fly 2 after watching my review of The Fly, but unfortunately I was unable to find it streaming anywhere, which I thought was kind of weird. So I asked Frightfully Forgotten for another film and American Gothic was chosen. I had been wanting to watch this one for a minute now, so I was excited for this pick. And I've said it a bunch of times on my channel, but be sure to check out Frightfully Forgotten's channel if you're looking for some hidden gems and some laughs. Here is a brief spoiler-free summary of American Gothic, but I will get into some spoilers toward the end of the video. A group of 6 friends decide to go on a trip and fly a private airplane. But before they arrive at their destination, they are forced to do an emergency landing because of engine trouble. When they go looking for help, they find an old home that seems to have been frozen in time, looking like it's straight out of the 20s or 30s. Thinking the house is abandoned, the group starts going through everything, marveling at all of the vintage artifacts. In the middle of their impromptu dance party, homeowners Ma and Pa show up, and from there, the creep factor goes up a couple of notches. At the start of the film, we learn that Cynthia is still recovering from the loss of her baby, who drowned when Cynthia left her alone in the bathtub. She is still working through her trauma, so her mind is still very fragile. This really plays well later in the film when the two groups come together. American Gothic was written by Bert Whittinson and Michael Vines, and for both of them, this was their first and last feature-length script. The film was directed by British filmmaker John Hough, who directed many different genres of film, but he found most of his success in suspense films. Some of his more popular films include The Incubus, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, and Twins of Evil. And I wish this writing and directing team would have done more together because they had a really great understanding of dark comedy horror. This film perfectly balances humor and suspense. Although the film is titled American Gothic, it was shot in Canada and was initially released on VHS as Hide and Shriek. Unfortunately, this is the only trivia that I was able to find out about the making of this film. I'm not sure why they decided to name this film after Grant Wood's 1930s painting American Gothic, and the cover art for the film is also inspired by that painting. Starring, we have the prolific Rod Steiger, Yvonne DiCarlo, who played Lily Munster, Sarah Targov, Mark Erickson, Carolyn Barclay, Mark Lindsay Chapman, Fiona Hutchinson, Janet Wright, Michael J. Pollard, and William Hookins. Janet Wright, who played Fanny, was my absolute favorite. She really made this film for me. Sarah Targov, who plays Cynthia, was another standout performance in this one, especially at the end. When the film first started, I was initially a bit turned off by the opening credits music and some of the actors. It didn't really feel like I was about to watch a horror film, but rather an episode of MASH, which I really don't care for. But once the group found the house, my interest began to grow with each scene, and luckily the music did change and was a bit more fitting and sinister. We've got our typical setup of a murderous family living in a cabin in the woods, and crossing paths with them is a death sentence. Movies with a similar premise that come to mind are Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes, and Wrong Turn. However, the execution is very original and unique. In the 80s, comedy horror was becoming increasingly more popular. Some filmmakers went completely over the top with their humor, while others were were a bit more subtle, and American Gothic does a really great job with presenting their humor in a subtle way, in a way that reminds me of Heather's. This deranged family truly believes their own delusions, which really adds to the creep factor. It's not just a family who gets off on being serial killers, but they are actually stuck in the past and believe anyone who comes in contact with them is keeping them from their holy mission from God. An isolated home in the woods located on an island is the perfect setting for a slaughter fest. And to go back to Fanny, despite her size and her strength, she actually believes that she's an 11-year-old girl, which is creepy as fuck. Even if she didn't actually believe that she was 11 and was just putting on this persona 24/7, that's just as creepy. I'll get a little bit more into that in the spoiler section of this video, but this film just does a really good job at illustrating just how fragile the human mind can be. The atmosphere felt so eerie that I jumped at every possible jump scare, and I'm pretty picky about my jump scares, but I didn't mind them in this film. They just added to the tension that was building. This story is a bit predictable, but we do get some surprises from time to time. One of my favorite moments is when Rob rides the swing. As far as cons go, the first would be basically the first 15 minutes of the film. The lighting was off, some characters were annoying, and character reactions didn't seem plausible. One example would be when they land and go looking for help. They decide everyone should go except for one guy, who is left at the plane all alone. And overall, the acting was just okay for me. And after the 15-minute mark, there were still times where character reactions didn't sit well with me, most notably the relationship between Cynthia and Jeff. There were times where it just seemed weird and unbelievable. And we didn't get enough kills on screen, and the ones that we did see weren't as gruesome as I expected them to be. But overall, I had a good time with this film, so I'd say if you have an hour and a half, go ahead and check this one out. American Gothic earns 3.5 rainbow skulls, and you can find this one on YouTube for free, as well as on Amazon with a Screen Picks subscription. Now here comes some spoilers. So this film ends with Cynthia being the last one standing, the woman whose baby drowned at the beginning of the film. After going through yet another traumatic event before completely healing from her previous traumatic event, she snaps and essentially assimilates to the family's ways and becomes one of them. I mentioned before that a lot of the creepiness of this film comes from the family actually believing their delusions, especially Fanny. But at the end of the film, you're made to wonder if Fanny and her brothers were actually kids of Ma and Pa. They could have also just been the last ones standing in their group when they were stranded on the island. Personally, I think that Cynthia was probably just a special case, but it still made me wonder. And speaking of wanting more blood and gore for a slasher film, I was really expecting for that finale to be a little more bloody, especially when they kick it off with the mummified baby being pulled apart. I didn't need to see a dummy baby be ripped apart or anything, but I did expect for her to see a bunch of blood gushing everywhere. Well, that's all I got for American Gothic. If you've seen this film, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And thank you again to Adam and Justin for your request. I'll definitely be doing a review of The Fly 2 as soon as I get my hands on it. Well, thank you again for joining me today, fellow Stardust. I appreciate you being here with me. I'll be back next week with some more videos, so if you haven't already, go ahead and hop on the Rainbow Fright freight train and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. And if you liked this video, please hit the like button and share it with a friend. I hope I see you next time. Peace.